Good afternoon. We call to order Lawrence Common Council Municipal Code meeting. Today is July 6th, and the time is 5:30. Welcome, everyone. Today we will be discussing proposal number 4, which in our code discussing loading and unloading zones through our city. Is there anyone here that would like to discuss the proposal?
Didn't Sharon sponsor this?
It's Councilor Freeman's.
Yeah, I didn't know if I saw Chief Hoffman. I didn't know if he was interested in talking about it or not. Do you have anything, Councilor Sharon, to add to it? No. Okay. This is a kind of a straightforward.
Yeah, I'm just my only curiosity is what generated this? What's prompted this?
Sharon, I can't remember the name of the development, but you want to jump in or you want me to? Okay, so there was a constituent that contacted Sharon of an apartment complex. Was it senior living? Yeah, it was a senior living complex where, they were having a constant issue with people parking for extended periods of time right in front of the doors, and particularly for people that have mobility issues. That was a problem, so they asked Sharon to look into it, and she asked me to look into it. And we don't actually have anything in the current code that sets forth any criteria for loading and unloading zones. So I pulled the language that you see here from Indianapolis for people to look at, consider. I will tell you that Sri had a concern about whether taking loading and unloading zones to the council in the process there that's at the end that says you're notified about it from the Board of Works, but if anybody, unless you do something active, it just takes effect after your next regular meeting. You don't necessarily have to do anything to change anything the Board of Works has done. That part of the process is only in Indianapolis in the central city area of downtown where loading and unloading zones, I think, it's more active. It's not applicable in the rest of Indianapolis. So he questioned whether that was really necessary. It was something Councilor Freeman wanted and wanted to give you all a chance to consider, because she just wanted everybody to be aware when new ones get established. Because there is no list, there's nothing in the code like there are for stop signs and other, no parking zones are all listed by street in the code, and that's not how loading and unloading zones are treated.
Yeah, a couple things that I saw in it that I thought might be a little questionable. Now that I know that a lot of it was from Indianapolis, it makes sense with them. But the period of time not to exceed 3 minutes, that seems to be a little
short.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's unloading groceries and they've got a trunk full, I don't know. That one kind of jumped out at me. That seems a little excessive in a passenger zone, no less.
Well, Councilor Shevlock, I kind of agree with you on that, especially if you're looking at passenger zone. If you start looking at our ADA laws, our disability, it's going to take them a little longer than 3 minutes to even get the equipment or their opportunities. So I want to say thank you both to Councilor Sharon, and I think it's important. I don't think there's any way that we know what exists in our city as far as these loading and unloading zones at this particular time. So this would give us an opportunity to be more conscious.
I had a question. What is the criteria to getting a loading and unloading zone?
There is none currently in our code.
So you just apply? I mean, what do you do? You come down and fill out an application, make a
Like, there
request?
wasn't even a process and Board of Works, she contacted, the constituent contacted Board of Works, and Board of Works referred her to the council for creating rules. So if there are any type of informal rules, I'm not aware of what they are.
So what we could assume then is that there's been no loading or unloading zones developed in this city for
A while.
a while. I did not know what sparked this. My assumption was our movement in the trades district and some of that stuff. I thought maybe we were getting tightened, getting in order for that. But I still think that's a positive train of thought. If we're going to go ahead and take a look at something like this. And when you talk about it being the time frame and all that stuff, well, if you get down in our trades district over there, even though we are doing some improvements to the streets and all that stuff, and I know it's going to be nice and grand, I could see where some guy that just wants to pull up in front and instead of pulling to a dock bay and unloading his hopefully goods, he pulls up in front of the loading zone and wants to sit there for 45 minutes while they unload a truck. So that's where that time frame. So I'm wondering, is unloading and loading zones, is that even the right category? This is, I guess, to you, for people being picked up, dropped off in front of a group home, residential, assisted living type situation compared to dropping off cargo down in the freight in the trade. I feel like they're different.
Counselor, this really creates two different zones. In A, on the first page, is a passenger zone. And to Counselor Chevlot's point, I'm sitting here just trying to think off the top of my head. It seems like in Indianapolis, a passenger zone time limit is more like 20 minutes.
Okay.
And so maybe we need to consider that amendment, if that makes sense. And then the B is freight zone, that really doesn't give a time period, just says that the unloading and delivery or pickup of materials marked as a freight zone shall be an expeditious loading and unloading. Like you need to be moving to get rid of the freight or load the freight, and you're not supposed to be stopping, standing, or parking in that zone.
Right, absolutely.
But it doesn't have a time frame.
And
Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and I think that I'm fine with that, just because you don't know what freight they're unloading and loading.
Could be a semi, could be a U-Haul.
I do have another question, though. I didn't understand this. So in section C, we're talking about the Board of Works, and so help me understand. So if someone comes in and wants to establish a maintenance of the zone, it goes to the Board of Works, and then after that, it gets put on the council agenda. So we're going to be, this potentially could be an ongoing thing. Every first of the month meeting, there's someone from the Board of Works that's petitioning to get a.
No, the way it's going to work is they'll petition the Board of Works. The Board of Works will then take that application to the city engineer for him to make a recommendation. And the Board of Works will vote on whether to establish the new zone. If they do, then it goes on council's next agenda, just so that you are aware that it happened. The only active voting you need to take is only if you want to stay it.
Okay.
Because you are concerned that there's something that you want to investigate, or you've heard complaints or something like that.
All right, that makes
sense. If it goes on your agenda and you take no action, it then just goes into effect as it otherwise would. So it's a lot simpler than even creating no parking zones or any other type of parking or stop signs that you've seen where we have an ordinance and we've got to pass every single one. I know Councilor Chevlot's done a couple in neighborhoods where there have been issues. This is not an ordinance, it's not a resolution, it's just really, it goes into effect unless you take some formal action. And I did run this, like I said, by Shreve after we drafted it. That understanding that process was the only concern that he had. And I told him if he still had a concern to come to this meeting, and he, to my knowledge, I don't think he's online. So I'm going to assume unless he's talked to any of you or come tonight, that it seems
cool.
okay.
Now, I do have a little, I don't want to say concern, I just want to discuss this a little bit further. When it comes to the time frame on the freight, I don't want to, make it real tight, but here's my concern. I'm in building B, there's building A, there's building B. I'm a responsible person in building B, and I schedule my drop-offs and deliveries. I make sure that folks use the dock to load and unload freight. But building A over here, this guy, he's rocking and rolling. He's got trucks flying out of his dock, and he's got trucks unloading, blocking the street. He's not doing his business all within the confines of his deal. He's using the street to load and unload through this loading zone all the time. Because I've seen that before in like commercial zones. And so I wondered, and I'm just kind of thinking of our trade district. I'm really hoping that it becomes something really big and bustling. And I'm just thinking like, with some parameter on that, like, kind of, since we're looking at it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm just thinking, though, that there's some businesses in Lawrence that aren't afforded an unloading and loading zone in the typical fashion like Freegie's going to have, or Meyer Plastic. So I'm thinking of the Mill Supply, and I'm thinking of those small auto repair shops that are in neighborhoods or on neighborhood streets that don't have a bay to pull into to load and unload because the place has been there since 1960 and it was just never developed. And so they're going to be unloading from the street into their garage for tires or.
Right. And those businesses, I would imagine, have been there forever. They've been doing that, and the people in the community, whatever, are typical. I just was afraid that, and I could be making a bigger deal of this, but in our trade zone down there, I don't know if all the buildings are rented out now. I don't know if it's at 100% capacity.
I have one comment or question. I'm just wondering, in line with your thinking, in the trades districts in particular, in any place that we have new construction, I believe there's a requirement in the zoning ordinance that they have to have loading and unloading docks. So I think Councilor Chevlot has a point about this may relate specifically to those businesses that are already in effect and are more neighborhood oriented and don't have that new construction and under the new zoning ordinance requirements. I'm just wondering if that's how.
I'm not talking about new
Thinking
construction,
that
because I
way.
think in the trades district, you only got one new construction, or two, that are gonna come in, and now.
As of now, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm talking about the old businesses that have already been there. So I'm in Suite A, B, C. I'm thinking about, I could just picture right away where the fireworks place used to be. That row right there, right? So all of those businesses in there got one dock going along the deal. But I've seen trucks lined down that street. And then when you come through the neighborhood past before you off of Franklin, you come down off in there, and that road, that street's going in there. And I don't know if there's loading or unloading zones there or not. I just didn't want, I'm just trying to protect any double parking, all that kind of stuff that could develop in a bustling business area. And I'm imagining that we don't have a lot of loading and unloading zones throughout the city.
I don't think we do, and I guess I'll ask our council attorney, based on how this is written, is this going to negatively impact those smaller businesses that the Bunny's Auto Repair or the pet shop that, they may face Pendleton Pike, but on the west side, it's a neighborhood street or something to that effect? Because I don't want to make this punitive to the businesses that aren't violating or not getting in people's way, but that's their unloading or loading zone.
Yeah. First of all, just to make sure we're all level set, keep in mind that you only have the ability to regulate public streets. So if you have an industrial complex that might have a loading bay, that's most of the time, I'm not familiar with every single parcel in the city, but most of the time, That's private property.
Right,
And so that's not this. But to your point, Counselor, about existing businesses, I would think if an existing business wants a loading zone that doesn't presently have one, they can petition. And what we see, and what this example that came to Counselor Freeman was the owner of the building wanted a loading zone and wanted to know how to establish one. So now we're creating the process to establish one. To me, an existing owner in a more residential area or a more historic street is going to have to be the one to say, hey, I want this loading
Right.
zone for my business.
Right.
Because really, the nearby residences and other businesses probably aren't going to be the ones asking for that.
Right,
And to
right.
me, it's maybe I'm thinking of it wrong, feel free to push back, but, I think it's going to be the business owners that decide yes or no, this is something I want to ask for versus something the city placing upon.
I was just trying to talk about the loading zone is there, and how do we keep loading zones from being abused? That's my point, is there, how we keep it from being abused, if it's saying a discriminative, I'm gonna be like, well, man, I'm moving freight, what do you mean? Like, well, the
Yeah.
flashers are on the truck.
I think that honestly,
Get away from me.
because it's very hard because we've never tried to regulate this before. My suggestion to the committee would be that you see how this all goes down before you try to fix problems you don't know
even know
whether will
exist, yeah.
actually come or not. And it may just end up being a code enforcement issue with a handful of people that are bad actors. Yeah, I don't know what that sound is.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions, because when you said this is creating a process onto how to establish a loading zone, and then you're saying that, if I heard correctly, we don't know the process because we've never done this process before.
Right.
So then we don't know what exists as far as loading zones out there, correct?
Correct.
And so that's something we have to fix as we go along. May have to grandfather certain things in. But I just feel that if we were going to take advantage of this opportunity as a city, that we at least put down something that we can all live with and be responsible. Because how many people even know that there are codes for loaning and unloading?
Yeah. I think that makes sense. I guess, though, at the very onset, though, I don't know if my fellow council members are open to this passenger zone restriction of not to exceed 3 minutes. I think it was mentioned earlier, 20 might be more reasonable. And you're right, we don't know what we don't know, but as we all know, we just passed a huge change in our ordinances and our permitting to get away from Indianapolis. And so we tried to centralize it here, and businesses loved that. And you and I worked on that, and that was the big impediment for businesses resisting to come into Lawrence because they weren't sure where they get this. And so I want to be sensitive to that we're not going to be putting stuff in front of businesses. But you also may be right that this may not create anything. But I would only ask if we're going to move on this tonight, that we at least amend it to reflect something more reasonable, like 20 minutes or 30.
I would agree with that. And I think the sense that I get from this new request is that it's going to make it easier for folks to traverse whatever they may have needs for. And we do have ADA parking requirements, so there is that. But I agree with Councilor Whitfield that there are instances where certain ADA disabilities and so forth would require someone to unload and load at a specific spot that may be too far away.
Yeah. The other thing I thought of, counselors, was I know, hotel development is a new thing for the city.
Yep.
And obviously most hotels are set back and they have their own drive, but it's very common now to have Uber if you want to, and they want to have a loading and unloading zone just for Uber near the hotel, just a few feet away. I think the easier it is for people in Lawrence hotels to Uber to other places and events they want to go, the more that draws people in. So that's another thing I didn't think of till we just kind of started talking through it.
And then the backside, and then you talk about loading and unloading, using that hotel, the backside of the hotel always got loading and unloading zones on it.
Right.
With in between. So I guess those are things that I do believe, though, that we don't want to create more of an issue based on anticipation. I guess maybe I kind of agree with Deb that we kind of address it as it comes along.
I would ask if you do want to change the number of minutes, which I do think makes a lot of sense, that maybe you vote to amend it now so that Kathy and I can work to have a corrected copy if you want to pass it tonight.
Yeah.
So we have the right version that came out of committee.
Yeah.
That'd be all I would ask.
All right, call for a motion.
Yeah, no, I have one more question. Do we need to deviate between passenger versus cargo, or did I understand that
I
correctly?
think we were just talking passenger, right? So that would be
It's
subsection A.
it's letter A, it's just passenger zone.
At the very last where it says 3 minutes in the last section, I think we're saying it would be 20.
Okay,
Because in the freight zone, we don't have any time limit.
Right, it's just expeditious.
and that's kind of my question. Do we want to make that, like, give them a 40-minute, or, I'm just wondering if that's something we should discuss?
That's what I was talking about when
Are we
I
getting too
was
specific?
concerned about the freight zone. That's what I was talking about.
I think that would limit us because we don't know all the businesses that's starting out. I do want to applaud the company that went through this because this gives us an opportunity to create a process. But I feel that right now, because we don't know, I wouldn't want to limit it right at this particular time because we don't know what industries, what businesses have freight, how long it's going to take. Is it lumber, is it electronics?
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So we're looking for the,
I'll make a motion to amend ordinance number 4, section A, not to exceed 20 minutes.
I'll second it.
all right, it's been moved and seconded that we amend proposal number 4, section A, to move the time period on passenger from 3 minutes to 20 minutes. Call vote, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? No opposes, so moved. Pass, motion passes. I think that's it, so we will.
You want to do a motion to
oh,
move it to full committee?
We need to move, yeah.
That's okay.
All right, so make a motion to make it to recommend this to committee, to a full council.
Full council, sorry.
Make a motion that we recommend to full council the amended version.
Second.
Number 4.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we recommend the amended version of proposal 3 to full council. If all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? We have no opposed, motion passes. That's it, right? Meeting over, meeting adjourned.